I'm Taylor with Shaw Edge Projects, and I am back with another project. I am back with another client that I have worked previously on her basement. I am going to now be reviewing her pantry, so I am here outside of her house. So we're going to go take a look at this pantry and see what needs done. So this is what her pantry slash hall closet used to look like. As you can tell, it's just kind of a mismatch of dog supplies, food items, cleaning supplies, anything she could kind of fit in there, and it wasn't really functional for her. This is what it looks like after we got all that stuff out. This was completely empty. And then here I am trying to stuff sandpaper, as you can tell. But behind is what you can see. I took off the shelving units that were in there and the clothing rack that was inside. So the board that was up there that they hung the bar on, actually, when they built the house, they decided that they were just going to install the board and then put on the plaster-like paint. So it was really, really rough and uneven. So I decided to sand all of my rough edges down and then wipe it off with a tack cloth, and afterwards go in with my spackling, which you can see here. And we're just going to kind of fill in that big wide spot to smooth it out. Wait for that to dry and then sand it off and paint it, so then it'll at least be pretty smooth for the shelving unit. This is the paddle I decided to go back to. It's much wider and much easier to make all of my spackling smooth. Spackling kind of looks like icing, cake frosting. Please don't eat it though. Bad idea. This is it after I've got all the spackling on. It looks 10 times better. So we are going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back the next day and sand it all smooth. And then we can paint the rest of it. I got sick and tired. I was going to try and put plastic down on the floor, but it didn't work. So I just decided to go with plain old painter tape instead. Third time measurements just to double check before I left for the day. So I did decide to paint everywhere else except for where the spackling was, just to kind of get that taken care of so that when I came back and sanded everything down, that would be dry, and then I could put the final coat of paint on everything all at once. Gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, found the door the hard way. Hi, Betty. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. So she asked me if I could paint the door with the same crisp white paint that I was using on the walls, and decided not to take this little hook part off, so I just taped around it so it didn't also turn white.
I know. No, don't come over here. I don't want you stepping to paint. I don't want you to get little footy prints all over the floors. I don't want you to get little footy prints all over the floors. I know.
I'm covered in paint. Did you truly paint if you're not completely covered in it? So I wanted to come on here and say that I'm going to try and like lock myself in this closet so I can do the sanding of the plaster because I don't want to get dust all over their house. So the lighting sucks in this area, but that's okay. I've got a lovely little, oh that's bright, let's just blind all of you right here. Little light that I'm kind of hanging on the door, so hopefully that's going to help out. If the video is really bad quality, I do apologize. I'm going to like try to angle you through a tiny crack in the door, but otherwise I'm going to be locking myself in this closet. See you in a bit. Always masks when you're sanding, well, anything, but especially plaster. I have this filtered mask. And don't be like me and forget your glasses. Always wear glasses. I walked out of the house without mine, so pray for my eyeballs. You know what, you're just gonna come in here with me. Okay, creepy in the closet. I'm basically just taking an 80 grit sandpaper with my hand right now, just getting some of the really rough spots out. I'm going to be later coming in with a 220 grit sandpaper on my power sander and smooth it out a lot better, but I just want to get some of the really rough stuff down right now. It's dusty. So now I'm taking my orbital sander with some 220 grit sandpaper and lightly going over this to smooth it all the way down. I'm so sorry. You are really dusty. It's a lot smoother. I'm covered in dust. We're gonna vacuum off the dust as much as I can, and then I'm gonna take a wet paper towel because I don't have any tack cloth left, and wipe this basement.
Let's paint.
So then I wiped everything down with a wet paper towel because, again, I didn't have any tack cloth, and this kind of gets enough dust off that I could at least paint. So I went in with my brush over the freshly dried and sanded spackling and kind of filled in where I didn't get before. So clean, so white, so fresh. I love it. Love a good clean white wall. Just so nice. Apparently Self in the Moment Me decided that VoiceOver Me could do this, so I'm pointing out my measurements of my shelves. I have two different sizes. The first one on top is my majority of my shelves, as you can see there, and then I have a skinnier one on the bottom, and that's going to go up high so there's more space to reach up and put items up there. So here I'm making sure I have enough wood. I'm pretty sure I bought enough. So I have 6 shelves, as you can see, and basically saying that the bottom is going to be the biggest spot, and then I have 8-inch shelves spacing going the rest of the way up for canned goods. And of course the camera won't focus at all, but you get the gist. Shelf 1 and shelf 2. Bigger space and a smaller space. That's going to be up higher, so you can put like paper towels and pots and pans and stuff up higher. So after marking everything off, I decided that it would be easier to take my square and just draw giant lines down the boards instead of measuring every single one individually. And then I got out my vice grip table that my dad thought I would use, which I do all the time. You basically squeeze it together, put your wood in the middle, squeeze it together, and then it is like a vice grip, so it doesn't move or wiggle around when you cut. Unroll your extension cord. Get your wood set up, squeeze it. Gloves, glasses, cut. Then rinse and repeat. This is where I decided to lay out what my braces would look like on my shelf. I forgot that I hadn't cut off the last inch from the store. I had them cut my plywood board down into these smaller manageable sheets, but I didn't cut that last inch off. So I had to go in and do that. And then this is me figuring out how deep I actually wanted my spaces in the middle to be. I think I decided on 6 inches, but I did have to draw all that out and kind of brainstorm a little bit. The rest is just a montage of me measuring and cutting out my shelves. once that was all done, I got to sanding. Got to the long process of sanding everything down. But it went pretty fast. I'm actually one of these random people that enjoy sanding because it's nice to just kind of throw on some good music and be in my own company for a bit. Growing up an only child, you kind of find solace in moments like that. I also struggled way too long to get this daggum glue bottle open, to the point that my husband came home and was like, "What are you doing?" Once I got everything sanded and wiped off, I took them into my craft corner down in our basement and painted everything the same white that was on the walls. They did take about 3 coats of paint to finally get them completely opaque and covered. Some of those knots that you see just did not want to stay hidden, and I think a few of them did decide to poke through, but I didn't worry too much about it because I knew they were going to be covered in shelf liners anyway, and then obviously covered in pantry items as well. Wild kitty cat sighting. first one is 24 inches high, but since I'm putting in the braces and my shelves are 3/4 of an inch thick, I'll be doing 23 3/4 inch to accommodate for the spacing. So I'm marking that on the wall right now. So here's what I'm running into. Brought my square, which I used to call a corner when I was a kid. Still is the first thing that pops in my head. And you can see, I'm sorry, the light's awful. This corner isn't square. Very common in houses, especially older houses. These other corners aren't bad. Not much wiggle room. So basically we're just hoping that if they fit. If they don't, I did bring my jigsaw so I can cut them down a little bit, but we're hoping they fit. So what I'm going to do is, I have my mark on my wall. I'm going to basically take one of my pieces, flop it up there, make it level, and then draw a line on top of it so that I know where I need to be drilling holes. I'm going to pre-drill my holes, find the studs, and I forgot my stud finder, so we're going to do this the old-fashioned way, by ear. Basically, if you can usually find one stud, the studs are 9 times out of 10, 16 inches apart in the wall, but you also want to check and just make sure. Usually you can hear the difference. Between the studs will sound hollow. When you do hit a stud, the sound will get more like a thud. It won't reverberate, so we're going to give this a shot. Wish me luck. Okay, so got my trusty level. So typically when you're screwing things into the studs, you only really need a screw that is twice as long as the piece you're drilling through. So for example, these are 1 inch thick this way, so your screw needs to be 2 inches long. Nice and blurry picture right there. But I do have this smaller box of 2.5 inch screws that I just kind of want to use up, so I might put these on the bottom shelf since I know that's going to be the heavier things, just to kind of use them up and make sure it stays. Corresponding drill bit, Phillips head screwdriver for attachment for my power drill. And let's go. Really hard to drill without a drill. So here I'm marking how high they need to be on both sides. This is the knocking process to find those studs. I have measured that they're about 16 inches, so I've put marks at the 16-inch marks, but I just want to be sure that that's actually where they are. So I have then put an X on the wall where I have heard the studs and see if it lines up with my measurements, which they did fairly well, so very proud of that fact. And then I put my big board up there, put my level to make sure it's, well, level. Got my drill, pre-drilled my holes. If your board does wiggle a bit, as long as when you make that hole your level, it's kind of okay, because the screw is going to go where your hole has been drilled. I drill in one, make sure I'm still level, then drill in the other side. And that's how it goes. So I usually put 1 to 2 screws in, and then I kind of pre-drill the rest of them, because it's much easier that way. They look fantastic. So, here's the problem we're having. I know, the lighting is great, I'm so sorry. These are in studs. There's usually a stud at your door frame and a stud at your corner. So I got those. However, there's not a stud in the middle of this wall. Here, I'll just use my shadow. These walls are 18 inches wide. And there's not a stud in the middle. So my boards aren't gonna have anything to anchor into. This one here, fancy. This one here doesn't really have anything to anchor into. It doesn't reach, you know, the sides where the studs are. There's nothing to hold it in the middle. So I'm gonna try and just put up all of them without these sides and see what I think about the strength. If I don't need them, I'm not gonna install them, but we're just gonna find out. And I might call someone with a little more knowledge than I do. Also known as my father. That's shot. So this is basically me just installing the rest of the braces. Trying to make my shelves fit, which no matter how much I push, they're not gonna fit. I've wiggled, I've budged. One side goes down in grate, and the other side refuses to do so. Remember how I said they weren't square? The corners? They don't fit because the off-kilter is too much. Some of the corners are hitting. So I'm gonna have to cut them down. Luckily I brought my jigsaw, I just wish I didn't have to use it. But there's all these pretty painted shelves. Sometimes you just gotta improvise. Basically what I'm having to set my shelves on, I think is a bench that would have a cushion. I think that's what it was. It was the only really flat thing I could get. And then the electrical outlet is over here by the bird bath, so that's where I had to plug in my jigsaw. But you know, you do what you can and make it work. That's why you bring clamps. Clamps make everything better. I decided to only take about 1/4 of an inch off of the edges, kind of work my way down and not take too much off at a time, and just see what works. This ended up being the right move because this 1/4 of an inch made them fit. pretty much. It fits close enough. Lesson learned for next time. I gotta figure out how to measure when I cut shelves. How do you measure for it not being square? Figure out how to measure angles and stuff. So this is why they wanted you to take that kind of math in school. It finally applies. That's not good. I was never good at math. Ever. This one I think is 16. The first one's 24. This one is upside down. Because I'm a 27-year-old with the back of an 80-year-old and bending over hurts. Yeah.
So then I basically just rinsed and repeated, measuring up from my previous shelf, marking it off, and installing my braces and shelving.
One screw right there. Got my level. Got another hole. So I'm going to take my larger drill bit, which I'm actually going to squeeze in a little bit. That's not very good. And make a bigger hole since I've got a thicker screw. Switching to my 2-inch screws rather than my 2.5-inch screws. So yeah, that's the plan. And we just keep going.
And this is what they look like afterwards. So nice. I'm so excited. I'm so pleased. It looks fantastic. So this is me taking everything out. A couple days later, she had kind of started putting stuff in to see if it would fit. So I took all of that stuff out and started putting in all of the shelf liners.
Well, when you asked me about doing all of that, I just did the inches. I knew the inches of how long each piece was. And I figured out kind of the surface area of them as well and went against how long the rolls were, inches-wise. And made sure to just go over that, make sure you have enough. What I've been doing is I'm just like rolling them out, pressing it against the wall, making a crease, and cutting it. My mom laughed at me because the label maker I got is just like the old-fashioned label makers. It's not an electronic one. You like spin the dial and punch it and it punches the letters and stuff. And she laughed at me for getting that one.
So this is what it looks like afterwards. We have all of our baskets and containers for the pantry items that she has. We've got our Lazy Susans. That was a big request of hers. All of the decanters for the dry goods. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, so I'm going to sign it off right here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked anything about this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more of my projects, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to know when my videos upload, hit that bell notification, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!